Blessings, beloveds, welcome back. Let's talk about the new moon in Capricorn, which is just literally a couple of days away, and also the solstice, which is a very powerful portal that takes place every year, but every year is different on that external level, and certainly different on that internal level within our own path, evolutionary path, level of consciousness, life experiences, and so forth. It's a really beautiful new moon, actually, but I'll get to that in a minute. Yesterday, I posted just a quick 2-3 minute video just reminding people of the Pluto webinar that I'm putting together. And so, just so there's no confusion, it's not going to be a public video. So if you want to join, please email me and just let me know. For those of you that have emailed me, thank you. And I will endeavour to get back to each of you individually. However, the plan is to email everybody at once, like a group email, and just provide details and so forth. So if you don't hear from me immediately, please be patient, because it just takes a while to kind of get through emails and different things. So, and for those of you that didn't see that video, it's a workshop on Pluto in the 12th house, whether you have it there natally or whether you have had it as a transit this lifetime, or whether you will have it as a transit. And even if it's none of those things, and you simply just want to, have a deeper understanding of Pluto in the 12th, because you may work with people that have Pluto in the 12th house, or you may want to look at family members, friends, charts, things like that. It's going to be a really powerful workshop, powerful because it is Pluto, and also I'm drawing from my own personal experience of the last 15 years of what Pluto has meant in my life, and it's incredibly rich and powerful. So we're looking forward to sharing with those of you that do want to engage with me through that webinar. And as I said, just email me if you're interested. Okay, so yesterday I tried to film this twice. I recorded for half an hour, interruption, got cut out, lost video, started again, same thing. Was talking for half an hour, it ended, interruption, disruption, lost the video. So here I am on attempt 3, and I'm hoping that we will get through this fine. Okay, so the new moon in Capricorn, well, there's quite a bit to say. It's the last new moon of 2022. It's in Capricorn, Venus is in Capricorn, Mercury is in Capricorn, Mercury will retrograde in Capricorn, Pluto is in Capricorn. First of all, I guess one thing that I'd like to say is, because I was thinking about it from an esoteric level as well, there is, first of all, there is the practical, everyday, mundane level of the Capricorn archetype, and therefore how that speaks to our life in that Capricorn way. And whether we have planets in Capricorn or not doesn't matter. We live in a Capricorn dimension. The third dimension reality is a Saturn Capricorn existence, really. So we are all dealing with Capricorn in some way in our life. The backbone and structure of our life is defined by the archetype of Capricorn and Saturn. So this new moon it's got a lot of good things about it. It does have, one thing about it that I would have a question mark. But once again, with any archetype we are looking at, or any aspect or planet or chart or whatever, there is always, flip side to that coin. There is always a shadow component. There is always a higher, level of expression of that energy. There's, which I would define more as a conscious soul integration or expression. And then there is, of course, the personality level. And you'll note that I raise my hand up here when I speak about consciousness and soul, and I raise my hands a little bit lower when I speak about personality. And that's kind of a subconscious thing, really. It's not something that I plan, it's just subconscious, but I just noticed myself doing it. And I'm bringing that up because it's not about bashing the personality and bashing the a lower sort of state of consciousness, as it were, because everybody has a personality. It doesn't matter how wise you are, we all have a personality, so it has a purpose. But the point with esoteric astrology and with the higher expression of Capricorn is to integrate the personality into the soul's intentions. And usually the soul and personality are at odds, because the personality has a very different agenda, typically, to the soul. And so therein lies the conflict, the tension, the resistance that often comes up with our life when we are wanting to push into one particular direction and have our own sort of agenda, motivations, desires, etc. And it's not aligning with the soul, and a very simple example, this is not always the case, this is a general statement, but it seems to follow through in a lot of cases. Sometimes you could be, pushing for something so intensely, so hard, wanting it so badly, and it just doesn't work out, right? For whatever reason that may be. And it's very easy to fall into, disappointment, anger, dissatisfaction, annoyance, blame, victimhood, and so forth. There's that. And then there's the option of looking at it from a much bigger picture view, soul perspective, and trying to understand perhaps why it's happening from a soul level. Why has the soul not met up with that part of our personality that is reaching out for that? It's not an easy thing to do because it's pretty much unconscious. So it takes a lot of work to even begin to understand that. And even sometimes when we attempt to do that, we don't always get a clear-cut answer or resolution. And so then it comes to understanding and accepting that some things forever remain a mystery, and some things can sometimes not be resolved from the personality level that we are seeking. So the new moon in Capricorn is squaring Chiron and Jupiter, and is forming a conjunction to the goddess Hygeia, which I think is important. Before I bring up the chart and unpack those aspects a little bit, let's think about Capricorn from an esoteric perspective. Esoterically, Capricorn is viewed in a very different way as to the way it's viewed in exoteric astrology. It has the same rulership, though. It's ruled by Saturn, which is interesting. If you think about the sun's journey, through the 12 zodiac signs throughout the year, and just kind of rewind back to probably around Scorpio, which is the time where we have an invitation to go into the underworld, our unconscious, and explore, look at, and work through some of those issues or storylines or matters in our life. And then and the shadow, right? The shadow component exists within all of us. That's not, it's not a, how can I say it? It's not a lie. It's not a myth. It's not a imaginative theory. It's fundamentally true, right? In terms of our own psyche having shadow components, and which are unconscious, and certain things in the timeline of our life, which I believe are divinely timed, activate different components of these shadow aspects of ourself so that we can further grow. And one person who said it quite well was Yogananda, whose teachings are quite profound from a lack of a better word, spiritual teachings and knowledge in astrology as well, for that matter. And one of his quotes was, "Your trials did not come to punish you, but to awaken you." I love that statement. It's very simple, but very, very profound. And I think it really does speak to Capricorn energy quite a bit, because Capricorn, being ruled by Saturn in a third dimension reality, is a difficult energy. It's not an easy energy at all. And from an evolutionary perspective, Capricorn's quite a difficult portal and energy as well, because it speaks so strongly to conditioned memories, templates, psyche, experiences, and so forth, and the frustrations around those sorts of things, and the need to break free from what feels like something that has imprisoned us, our mind, our body, whatever it is. So Capricorn's quite a hard energy. It has some softer components to it as well. It's a feminine sign. It has some really beautiful components to it, but at that three-dimensional reality, at a personality level, it's quite a difficult sign. Esoterically, however, it's the sea goat, the unicorn, the mystical, more mystical and ethereal kind of creature, if you like. And if you think about the mountain goat that climbs up the mountain, think about the process and the method that it uses, the cautiousness, the steps to climb up that mountain. Have you ever seen a mountain goat climb those enormous mountains? It's a phenomenal thing to observe. And it's so characteristic, actually, of the characteristics that we understand about the archetype of Capricorn, which is the cautiousness, the hardworking, the method, my tongue's getting all twisted, methods, approach, things like that. And the one that strives to reach the top of the mountain, those goats, they strive to reach the top of the mountain, and they do get there. And that's just a beautiful metaphor and analogy for on a spiritual level, or on a level where the disciple, as they say in esoteric astrology, the truth seeker, in a more plain English kind of way, seeking to expand its own consciousness, right? So Capricorn holds tremendous wisdom, is what I'm getting at. And at that more conscious, elevated level, where it's using the personality as a vehicle to become more conscious, as opposed to the personality being its own vehicle and having its own identity and its own agenda, which is more based around self-serving things, right? When we are trying to elevate our own consciousness and see things from a bigger picture perspective, it could also follow then that part of that journey is also about recognizing, the collective, the rest of humanity, and wanting to be of aid, to be of assistance in the growth, development, evolution of the whole planet and everyone on it, So it's not a self-serving centered thing. For instance, Martin Luther King is a perfect example of one of the most elevated Capricorns of his time, especially. We all know his famous speech. So in esoteric astrology, this mystical Capricorn is about initiating the path of truth and integrating deep wisdom and truth, and having that initiative in that journey, in that process. Because Capricorn being a cardinal sign, all cardinal signs speak to initiation in some capacity, and certainly Capricorn, but from that broader, bigger picture level, right? Because Capricorn really reflects the entire, society and systems in play, right? So Sun in Scorpio, underworld, shadow material, difficult passages for sure. The Sun moves into Sagittarius. There's a sense of relief, a sense of things feeling a little bit lighter and more optimistic, and we're able to now start to connect to our visions of what we are envisioning for ourselves moving forward, which is Sagittarius. And we've got that beautiful symbol of the archer, shooting the arrow, and those arrows are shooting into all expansive fields that help us dream, if you like, envision, the future, whether it's for ourselves or the future for humanity, for that matter. And when we get to Capricorn now in the new moon, and the sun's, in Capricorn, it's a time to really get serious, real, grounded and practical, and work towards and bring some discipline into those visions that we had, during the sun being in Sagittarius, for instance. So Capricorn brings in quite a heavy dose of reality of what's possible and what's not possible. And that's not necessarily a terrible thing, because we all have limitations. But at the same time, we have to keep our visions and dreams alive and see things from broader perspectives as well. I think the best we get out of Capricorn at that mundane, basic personality level is the ability to be really focused, driven, disciplined with the actions that we are ready to take, right? I might just actually bring up the chart for this new moon, just so that we can look at things visually. So this chart is based for Melbourne, Australia, my current location, so you would need to alter it based on your own location. As always, the most important thing is to locate where this new moon is in your own chart. New moon cycles don't necessarily change your life, but they can be a powerful activation for things that are already in the pipeworks, so to speak, right? The square to Jupiter is actually a really positive thing, really positive. First of all, Jupiter is a benefic. Jupiter does very well in Aries. It went back into Aries just a couple of days ago. So it's back at the beginning of the zodiac, where it will now finish its journey in Aries by early next year. And therefore, we really are at the point now where this new chapter relating to Jupiter matters, this new cycle of 12 years, because Jupiter has a 12-year cycle, is ready to really kick off now, right? Jupiter square the moon really enhances that moon, actually, that new moon cycle. So we could almost say that the Jupiter in Aries brings in a lot of confidence and faith and courage in the projects that we wish to step into, right? The new cycles, journeys, passageways, chapters in our life that we are ready to begin. Jupiter in Aries really brings in a powerful sense of courage and optimism, right, in starting new things, like clean slate, starting something completely brand new. And so squaring the new moon, it's just going to make that new moon all the more powerful relative to all Capricorn things. And so depending on where the new moon is in your chart is going to speak to that area of life that will have a lot of attention over the next month. And specifically because, Venus is in Capricorn, Mercury is in Capricorn, and Mercury will go retrograde shortly in Capricorn as well. So wherever the new moon is, you're going to be dealing with this Mercury being a strong part of this lunation cycle, which again is great because it's going to bring about new ideas, networking, connecting. It could have matters to do with siblings as well. Some matters might not be that easy because Chiron is squaring this new moon. I'll get to that in a minute. But just to give you an example, so I've got Capricorn on my 12th house cusp, right? And all these planets in Capricorn are all in my 12th house at the moment. And it's since Mercury went into my 12th house, and particularly when Mercury was in its shadow, pre-shadow period, is when I decided to put this Pluto webinar together, to do this webinar / workshop, whatever you want to call it, on Pluto in the 12th house. And so I didn't plan that. I was very well aware that Mercury was in Capricorn. I rarely look at my own chart, actually. I'm too busy looking at, doing videos and looking at other people's charts and whatnot. But anyway, I noticed quite in that uncanny manner that when I made the decision about doing something quite profound and personal as well about Pluto in the 12th house, Mercury had already gone into my 12th house. So this new moon, which is also in my 12th house, is going to be part of this process of me writing about Pluto in the 12th house, right? Transiting or natal. So that's just an example, right? So look at it for yourself. Where is this new moon in your chart? Because the house it's in is extremely important. Now, if you don't know your time of birth, I understand that, you're not able to work with it, but you can still work with the new moon. A new moon cycle, what sign the new moon is in, what that sign represents, and so forth. But most people tend to have a rough birth time at least. And so you can determine where the new moon is going to be in your birth chart. And when you're setting intentions and getting ready to step into a new lunation cycle, it's always good to bring into the field of your consciousness and your thoughts and what you are contemplating, bring into it the matters that connect to that house, for instance, because that's the area of where that new moon is planting the seed and where things will ultimately evolve, come full moon and then at the end of this cycle as well. The fact that the moon is conjunct Hygeia and square Chiron is pretty significant to me. First of all, Hygeia and Chiron both connect to healing and health in different ways, but broadly speaking, both connect to healing and health. Chiron is never, ever, ever an easy archetype to work with. It's really one of the bodies that the most common word we hear for Chiron is deep wounds, and rightly so, because it does activate very deep wounds. That's very complicated relative to Chiron, because you have to go deep into Chiron's mythology and then deep into observing Chiron in your own birth chart and then Chiron's journey around your birth chart. Now, many of you will be having a Chiron return if you're about 50 or 51 or 49, around there. So if you're in that position, then this is quite a significant cycle for you, because Chiron is stationary here as well. It's stationary, preparing to move direct. It's been retrograde for quite a few months now, half the year or something like that. So it's preparing to go direct. So in other words, stationary, when a planet is stationary, it's essentially stopped in its tracks, at least from our perspective here on Earth. And so what that refers to is the energy is extremely potent. Extremely potent. I've seen really powerful things be activated in my own life and in other people's lives when a planet has stopped. Whether it's going to go retrograde or direct, there are different meanings for that, but the meaning for it being stationary and having stopped, that within itself speaks to that energy being extremely potent and powerful. Now, in this case, it happens to be going direct. So for those of us that have been working on our Chiron journey, for the past 6 months while Chiron has been retrograde, this can be a time where things can move forward with the work that you have been doing on that level of Chiron in Aries, and if you are having a Chiron return especially. And because it's actually squaring the new moon, it is bringing up whatever has been worked on or whatever has been pushed under a bit will now be reactivated, as it were, because Chiron is stationary direct, and this is a new moon cycle, and they are square each other. And whilst Jupiter square the new moon is actually a real benefit, it really enhances the vibration of this moon. The Chiron square the moon doesn't have that same level of ease about it. Jupiter is a benefic. Chiron is neither a benefic or a malefic. It's simply a deeply painful point in all of us and in our chart. So Chiron squaring the new moon can bring up some matters for people that won't necessarily be very, very comfortable. And I guess if you just think about the basic meaning of the archetypes from the point of view of Aries, which is about your own identity, your own autonomy and courage, and the Capricorn archetype squaring Aries really points to conditions and systems and parents and governments and narratives that have felt limiting. And so Chiron squaring the new moon may trigger some of those themes, whether they are themes that have been lying dormant for a while, or whether they are themes that you are quite aware of and trying to work through. And, you know, given the state of the world the last 3 years, there are a lot of people waking up through great discomfort, because that's how awakening happens. It happens through cataclysmic events and through crisis. It doesn't happen while you're relaxing in a hot tub with a bottle of wine. You know, it's just how it is, right? So collectively, there's been, you know, massive crisis, and the awakening that's happening is beyond what we could have even conceived of, although it might appear from the exterior, Capricorn, Saturn, that there's these really powerful systems still in control of everything. To a large extent, they're not. That's why there's so much noise about it all at the moment, because things are continuously cracking open, as it were. So some people might find this energy quite intense from the point of feeling like we are caught up in systems that still dominate and control and dictate, and how that really feels so wrong, you know, in our inherent infinite conscious nature, and our sense of autonomy and freedom in the identity that we understand about ourselves, Aries, right? So there's a bit of that coming in there too, but, you know, at a more personal level, it can just be bringing up some old wounds. And remember what I said at the beginning, your trials didn't come to punish you, but to awaken you. So if we can remember that when something really difficult does arise, and bring in some form of detachment to some extent, we can find a way to work through it, right? Detachment is so necessary in this third dimension reality, because the amount of things that are created in a way to distract us and to inject fear and control and so on and so forth, it's very easy to be a part of that and to fall prey to it. You know, it's a lot more difficult to not pay attention to most of it and be detached, you know, and see things from a bigger picture level, particularly when we are feeling that we are being hit personally by some of these things that are going on. And that's where, at that point in time, where we have to detach even more, right? And also with Hygeia being present during this new moon. Hygeia was the daughter of Asclepius, who is the god of medicine. She speaks very strongly to health. She was very strongly prominent in this picture of the narrative that broke out nearly 3 years ago, washing the hands and so on and so forth. She was in Gemini when this whole thing started. So she's had a pretty prominent voice during the last 3 years. Now, conjunct this new moon, it might actually start to bring in some matters to do with health and the systems, Capricorn, that are still being heavily challenged in ways that a lot of people aren't even aware of, because this is never spoken about in the general news and public sort of general media and news. But there are numerous organizations and groups of people, quite powerful and very knowledgeable people, who are pursuing the right or the rights of what people should have, with their choice in what they wish to do with their body, right, so to speak. So there's a lot going on, and I think there's probably going to be, some interesting things come out of this new moon cycle with Hygeia around the crumbling systems of Capricorn that are still trying to eject that level of control and power over humanity, essentially. I'd be very interested to see how that unfolds. That's obviously a collective picture, but I can't help thinking that that's going to bring up some things, especially because Chiron's squaring that new moon as well. And as I said, Chiron and Hygeia both speak to healing and health in a broad sense. And personally, this new moon conjunct Hygeia, just sort of stepping out of this 3D narrative for a moment and just looking at that energy from a personal, holistic, esoteric and spiritual level, this could be a really beautiful portal for working on our health and healing. It could be, it could be things like diet, for example. It could be anything that connects to our well-being, our fundamental well-being. So there's something very potent there with Hygeia, but it's the square to Chiron that brings in that challenging dimension, I feel. But like I said, when we are working through different chapters in our life that correspond to trauma or pain or, things we've been through and things that we need to continue to work on, breakthroughs usually happen quite suddenly because a breakthrough is ruled by Uranus. But at the same time, it is a buildup of things that are going on internally, and I'm sure most of you have had moments in your life where, something that, a difficult experience occurred and you just kind of, swept it under the rug, so to speak, and just sort of put it away because it's just a little bit too painful to even think about, to talk about, to confront. And then suddenly something will happen and the wound of that is exposed, right? It's like someone's just pulled off the Band-Aid, which is Chiron. Anything that hurts us deeply and is activated in us is usually a chironic type of wound or issue. And when the Band-Aid gets ripped off, that's the perfect time to work on that. Even though it's deeply, deeply painful, it's the perfect time. So I see this new moon as really powerful from that perspective of working on our own deeper types of wounds or fears. The fear of being rejected, which is a very, very, very powerful theme for Chiron and hardly ever spoken about, which goes back to his myth, which is his parents rejecting him at birth. Okay, that's in our psyche in some kind of way, depending on where Chiron is in the chart. And so, Chiron in Aries is it is that journey for us to heal anything inside of ourselves that doesn't feel good enough to just be, to radiate and shine in your beingness, in who you are as an individual, in who you are becoming, and stand confident in that space of who you are without the fear of judgment, exclusion, rejection, and so forth, which can also be Capricorn. And Chiron is squaring this new moon. So, another example might be someone's in a position at the moment where they are working for a company, and the company says, look, we're enforcing XYZ at the moment, and if you don't do it, we're just going to have to let you go. That will be a new moon square Chiron type of experience, because Capricorn certainly speaks to a system, an employer, a boss, somebody who's above you, so to speak, through a system, an authority figure, and so forth. And the Chiron part of this will be, well, no, you know what? I'm going to do what I actually feel is right for me. Even if you reject me, doesn't matter. I don't reject myself. I accept myself in the decision that I am making and what I want to do. It takes a lot of balls to do that, and a lot of courage, I admit, but it's there for the taking if people are ready to step into that kind of decision making, right? Aries is always about courage. Also, once again, with Mercury going retrograde in Capricorn, there's going to be some interesting things created and sorted through mentally during this lunation cycle, especially. When does Mercury goes just 1 second. Sorry, I was just so it goes retrograde on the 29th of December, stays retrograde for about 3.5 weeks. Okay, sorry, I was just kind of thinking out loud there. I just feel this Mercury going retrograde in Capricorn is very, very important for this new moon, because the new moon is in Capricorn as well. So just observe where Mercury and Venus, for that matter, and Pluto are obviously in your birth chart, because this new moon is going to open up something new for you relative to what's been going on with these planets in your Capricorn house. So that's, in very simple terms, that's the way to look at it. And obviously, if you've got planets in personal planets, particularly, in the sign of Capricorn, which many of you would, well, then, this new moon cycle is extremely significant. The thing that gives me, the most confidence about this new moon is that square from Jupiter. A square from Jupiter to the new moon is a brilliant energy. It's just going to amplify what that new moon can actually really produce. So think about the full moon we had a couple of weeks ago, which was that Gemini full moon with Mars. That was a terrible energy, if I'm going to be honest. That was at that 3D level, there was so much, unfortunately, the dark sort of side of Mars came through very strongly, and there was just a lot of violence with words, with actions, just a lot of chaos. It really wasn't a very nice full moon at all. I'd be interested to hear, what you felt or thought about it. This energy is quite different, quite different. It's a completely different sign. I'm always a little bit cautious with Capricorn, because Capricorn is cautious by its nature. So, you know, we have to bring in that part of ourselves that has to be really realistic with what we are looking at. You know, the Sagittarius part of us, which is the sign just before Capricorn, you know, shoots its arrows everywhere, you know, in all sorts of directions, and you know, has no limit. But Capricorn is about limits, and it is about being real. On the other hand, you know, it is also one of the most powerful signs relating to initiation, right? Initiating. But the initiation is, I would be more inclined to say that it's more about our spiritual work, our spiritual awakening and consciousness. Yes, a lot of things can be achieved on that exterior level with a new moon in Capricorn, relative to work, career, and success and things of that nature, depending on where it is in your chart and everything else that's going on in your chart. But I feel that at an esoteric level, this is an extremely powerful portal, because it's occurring basically, you know, a day after the solstice. The solstice is a powerful, you know, ancient, celebrated portal of energy. You know, we've been celebrating that for eons. You know, most people are aware that when the sun goes into Capricorn, it's the solstice, and it's a spiritual time. There's a lot of invitation for us to step into that field of our own path, our own working, what we are ready to initiate into our path of consciousness and evolution. Because consciousness and evolution is not something that occurs in one night. It occurs over, I don't even know how many lifetimes. So we are always working towards that. If we weren't, we wouldn't be here, right? So, you know, on an esoteric level, there's some really beautiful implications here with the sun in Capricorn, solstice time, new moon in Capricorn, and how closer we can connect and come to that place of wisdom. Because having intelligence and knowledge is not the same as having wisdom. You can have somebody who's got a couple of PhDs and 10 degrees under their belt, and they'll be perhaps an extremely intelligent person, one would think. But does that make them wise? Not necessarily. Wisdom is attained in so many different ways. There's wisdom in the body, there's emotional wisdom, there's mental wisdom, there's spiritual wisdom. If you look at esoteric astrology and you look at the rays, there's a soul ray, personality ray, the monad ray, there's a physical ray, and I've just forgotten another one. But for example, if you looked at the physical ray, in terms of what's the physical ray for you, you could have a particular ray at the physical that speaks to intelligence. And so what does that mean in plain English? And I've seen this a lot, which is why I'm bringing it up. Usually athletes, really powerful athletes, will have one of the rays that speaks to intelligence, such as ray number 3, which is, what's it called? Concrete science intelligence, something like that. If that ray is at the physical, then all the intelligence is coming through the physical body, right? In an athlete. So imagine an athlete, you know, at their highest peak level, the intelligence, the all source of intelligence is coming through their physical body, right? For instance. But is that the same as wisdom? Once again, it's not, right? Wisdom is such an important thing to integrate in our life, because that's what actually helps us stay aligned with the waking up process. Especially when the waking up process comes through some pretty harsh lessons and pretty harsh experiences, which it often does. Because you might look at that difficult situation and try to analyze it. A friend of mine on the phone today said, when you overanalyze something, analysis paralysis. So the mental analysis of something, the perception of it, and the trying to figure it out on that level doesn't bring meaning to what's happened. It might bring some sort of intellectual understanding, but meaning comes through the connection of wisdom, and wisdom is Jupiter, Sagittarius, right? Intelligence is Gemini, the knowledge, the intelligence, the understanding, to some degree, understanding. But Sag is what brings in the wisdom. And Capricorn, especially at that esoteric level, is a profound archetype connected to deep, deep wisdom from the earth, from natural law, which is more associated to Sagittarius, but I'm speaking on an esoteric level. So, quite apart from the physical, external, mundane personality level of this new moon, which may be very important to you about your work situation, career situation, and things like that, which I completely understand, at a deeper level, this is a powerful time of our own spiritual initiation and awakening, to further that, to enhance that. And why would we want to do that? And why is that important? Because from my personal experience and understanding, the more wisdom we attain, the more awake we are, the less suffering that we identify with as well. Because wisdom is what brings in that ability to observe and be detached. You know, it's one thing to see something and to take it on as if it's your own, completely identify with it and completely get lost in it. And then it's another thing to observe something and understand it and have empathy towards it and compassion towards it, but to remain detached. That's wisdom. So wisdom pays off, and it's very necessary. Eckhart Tolle was having a chat with Russell Brand the other day, and I loved what he said. He said there's stupid, and then there's a deeper stupid. I thought that was the best line I've ever heard. And to bring in some context, really what he was saying was that if these hierarchy systems and individuals or groups of people that bring unnecessary conflict and pain and trauma and chaos, you know, into the world, into society, into groups of people, into individuals, whatever it is, if they had wisdom, would they do that? They wouldn't do that. So being super intelligent, like most people would define Elon Musk as being a super intelligent man, and you know, I don't doubt that for a moment. I don't know about his wisdom levels though. I haven't really followed him very much. I don't think I like a lot of his ideas, if I'm going to be honest. I think there's something very odd about him that is not as good as it appears. And so that remains to be seen, I guess. But in any case, when you're talking about true wisdom honors and respects natural law. It doesn't abuse it in order to overpower and control. That's wisdom. So somebody who's super intelligent, who runs a massive, you know, multi-billion-dollar company and has, you know, achieved that through however they've achieved it, and they're just super intelligent and got these great ideas. How is that helping the earth and humanity? How is that solving things like poverty and the poison they put in our food and water? How is it addressing any of those things, homelessness and so forth? You know, if wisdom was dealing with those things, then those things wouldn't be nearly as grave as they are, right? So wisdom is huge. You know, stupidity is deep as well, regardless of how intelligent certain groups or systems or individuals appear. And it's up to us to attain wisdom by living the life that we are living and experiencing what we are and learning from our experiences. That's in very simple layman's terms. Wisdom also speaks to, well, I did this last week and it was a pretty silly thing to do. I know that I'd never do that again, just very simply put. We learn by experience, don't we? That's how we attain wisdom. So wisdom can never be underrated or underestimated. It is the one thing that is deeply lacking in this very broken world that we see at the moment. But it is going to change as well. The tables have to turn, and they will. So anyway, I've gone off track a bit. I've gone into more broader stuff, but that's okay because that's what came through. Just seeing if there's anything else. There are other things, but I think I'll just leave it there because I really just wanted to just bring into the focus more or less the new moon and some of the features around that. Okay, I've got to attend to some things. There's some dramatic things going on around me at the moment, which has kept my mind very preoccupied. And given that I tried to do this video twice yesterday, it was kind of all over the place, needing to come back and do it again today with some serious things I've got on my mind, with some things that are going on around me with people that I care about. So anyway, that's life. Things happen. A lot of things are out of our control, as I said just yesterday. And remaining detached is a powerful way to navigate through the chaos. And when crisis shows up and difficult things show up, Mercury in Capricorn especially can be really great when it's working at a really high level, because it can just deal with things. It can deal with the difficult situations. It can be really quite realistic with its perspectives and things like that. Like a dramatic situation happened, a painful situation happened with somebody very close to me, and it was very interesting because normally I'd get really fired up because I'm very passionate about people that I love and care about. That includes animals. And I just saw my response, which was so Mercury in Capricorn. It was just being supporting the individual with what was happening, but offering really sound suggestions, grounded, practical, realistic, and helpful and useful sort of suggestions and solutions to the situation that was going on. And I thought about that later, and I thought, that's really interesting, with Mercury being in Capricorn at the moment. So that's it's an interesting thing to observe, with any planet through any sign really, and especially now while Mercury is in Capricorn and going retrograde there. That's what's making this Mercury in Capricorn and new moon in Capricorn quite an interesting one. So I'll see you guys soon. I guess I won't see you before Christmas unless I find a way to jump back on and bring something else. If I don't, then I'd love to wish you all and your families a beautiful, safe time if you celebrate Christmas, or even if you don't. And I'll see you guys in the new year, which is not the true new year, by the way, because the true new year is the 21st of March when the sun is at 0 degrees of Aries. But in any case, it's the end of 2022 very soon. So I hope you're all well and safe. And as I said, email me for the Pluto webinar. And yeah, leave your questions and comments below. Always love to hear how you guys are doing, and sending you so much love and many star blessings, especially over these holiday seasons. Take care. Thanks. Bye.